Lisa stood in her backyard, staring at the swimming pool that had once been the pride of her home. The water looked murky, almost green in some spots, and no matter how many chemicals she added, it just wouldn't clear up. She'd been fighting this battle for months now, and honestly, she was tired of it. 8 years. That's how long she'd lived in this house with her husband Mike and their 2 kids. The pool had been amazing when they first moved in. Summer barbecues, birthday parties, lazy Sunday afternoons floating on rafts. The kids practically lived in that water during summer break. But lately, things had changed. It started with small cracks appearing along the bottom. Then the water started staying cloudy no matter what she did. She'd spent hundreds of dollars on different chemicals, filter cleanings, and DIY fixes she found online. Nothing worked. Finally, last month, she bit the bullet and called in a professional. The pool guy, an older man named Tony who'd been in the business for 30 years, walked around the pool shaking his head. He knelt down, ran his hand along the edge, and looked up at her with that expression that people get when they're about to deliver bad news. "How bad is it?" Lisa asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. Tony stood up and wiped his hands on his work pants. "Your liner's shot. Got tears in multiple places. And your filtration system? It's basically running on borrowed time. You need major repairs, and to do them right, we're going to have to drain this whole thing." Lisa felt her stomach drop. She knew this was going to be expensive. "How much are we talking?" Tony pulled out a calculator and started punching in numbers. The final estimate made her wince, but he assured her it was necessary. If she didn't fix it now, the damage would only get worse. The pool could crack further, potentially causing issues with her yard's foundation. Water could seep into places it shouldn't. Better to handle it now than face an even bigger disaster later. She talked it over with Mike that evening. They looked at their savings, did some mental calculations, and finally agreed. The pool needed to be fixed. They'd do it right. The next day, Lisa called Tony back and scheduled the work. He said they'd need about 2 weeks to get everything ready, order the parts, and arrange their schedule. He also mentioned something important that Lisa hadn't even thought about. "You're going to need a permit from the city," Tony said. "Can't just drain thousands of gallons of water without following proper procedures. Don't worry, though. We handle that all the time. I'll walk you through it." Lisa spent the next few days going back and forth with the city's building department. She filled out forms, paid fees, and waited for approval. It was tedious, but Tony had warned her that doing things by the book was important. The last thing she needed was trouble with the city on top of everything else. Finally, the permit came through. Everything was official and legal. Tony's crew would arrive the following Monday to start the drainage process. That Sunday night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the cost, about whether they were doing the right thing, about how long the repairs would take. But deep down, she knew this was necessary. The pool would be better than ever once it was done. The kids would be thrilled. Monday morning arrived bright and early. Tony and his crew showed up at 8 o'clock sharp with their truck full of equipment. They had large hoses, pumps, and various tools that Lisa didn't recognize. Tony walked her through the process one more time. "We're going to pump the water out through this hose here." He pointed to a thick black hose. "It'll run along the side of your house, out to the street, and into the storm drain. That's the proper way to do it. The city knows about it, everything's permitted, and we'll make sure it's done safely." Lisa nodded, watching as the crew got to work. They connected the pumps, laid out the hoses, and started the drainage process. The sound of rushing water filled the air. "How long will this take?" she asked Tony. "Pool this size?" "Probably 12 to 14 hours. We'll monitor it throughout the day, make sure everything's flowing properly." Lisa went back inside to work from home, checking on the progress every hour or so. The water level was definitely going down. She could see the shallow end steps emerging, then the deeper sections starting to appear. Around lunchtime, she was in her home office on a video call when Mike texted her. "Did you see the neighborhood Facebook group?" She hadn't. She rarely checked it, to be honest. It was mostly people complaining about barking dogs or asking for lawn service recommendations. But something in Mike's message made her curious. She opened the app and scrolled to the group page. Her heart sank when she saw the newest post. Her neighbor from next door, a woman who'd moved in about 3 years ago, had posted a long message with several photos attached. The photos showed water running down the street from Lisa's drainage hose. The message was lengthy and accusatory. "Warning to all neighbors," it read. "Some people think they can just dump thousands of gallons of water into our street without any consideration for others. This is creating a flooding hazard and is probably illegal. I've already contacted the authorities. We need to hold people accountable for this kind of irresponsible behavior. Lisa felt her face flush hot. She knew exactly who had written this. Her neighbor had always been particular about neighborhood matters. Last year, she'd complained about Lisa's garbage cans being visible from the street on non-collection days. Before that, she'd sent a passive-aggressive note about a tree branch from Lisa's yard hanging slightly over the property line. But this was different. This was accusing her of doing something illegal, posting it publicly for everyone to see, and apparently calling the police without even bothering to knock on her door and ask what was happening. Lisa's hands shook as she typed out a response, then deleted it. Then typed another one and deleted that too. She didn't want to get into a public argument on social media. She had all her permits. Everything was legal. Tony had assured her this was the standard procedure. She walked outside to check on the crew and maybe get some reassurance from Tony. But as she stepped onto her front porch, she saw something that made her stomach turn. A police car was pulling up to her curb. This couldn't be happening. Not overdraining her pool. Not when she'd done everything right, followed every rule, gotten every permit she needed. The officer got out of his car, and Lisa noticed her neighbor standing in her own driveway, arms crossed, watching the whole scene unfold like she was waiting for justice to be served. Lisa took a deep breath and walked down to meet the officer, her mind racing with thoughts about how a simple home repair had suddenly turned into a neighborhood incident that required police involvement. The police officer was young, probably in his late 20s, and he had that neutral expression that cops wear when they're not quite sure what they're walking into. Lisa tried to keep her voice steady as she approached him. "Good afternoon, officer. I'm Lisa Chen. This is my house. Is there a problem?" The officer glanced at his notepad. "Ma'am, we received a call about possible illegal water discharge. Someone reported that you're flooding the street?" Lisa felt a mix of frustration and embarrassment wash over her. She could see her neighbor still watching from across the way, and now a few other neighbors had come out to see what was happening. Nothing like a police car in a quiet suburban neighborhood to draw a crowd. "Officer, I'm draining my swimming pool for repairs. I have all the proper permits from the city. The company I hired is licensed and insured, and they're following all the regulations." She tried to sound confident, not defensive. "Can I see the permits?" he asked. "Of course." "Let me get them." Lisa hurried inside, her heart pounding. She grabbed the folder with all the paperwork from the kitchen counter where she'd left it. Her hands were shaking slightly as she walked back out. This was ridiculous. She was being treated like a criminal for fixing her pool. The officer took the papers and looked through them carefully. He walked over to where Tony and his crew were working and started asking them questions. Lisa couldn't hear everything, but she saw Tony pointing to the hoses, explaining the setup, showing his business license and insurance documents. The whole process took about 15 minutes, but it felt like an hour. The entire time, Lisa was aware of eyes on her. Her neighbor hadn't moved from her spot. A few other neighbors were pretending to check their mailboxes or water their plants, but everyone was clearly watching. Finally, the officer walked back to Lisa and handed her the papers. "Everything checks out, ma'am. You've got all the proper documentation. The drainage method is approved by the city. You're not doing anything wrong." Lisa felt relief flood through her. "Thank you, officer." He nodded and then looked across at her neighbor. The person who called said this was creating a flooding hazard. "I don't see any flooding. The water's going directly into the storm drain like it's supposed to." "That's exactly what the pool company said would happen," Lisa confirmed. The officer made some notes and then got back in his car. As he drove away, Lisa stood there for a moment trying to collect herself. She'd never had the police called on her before. She'd never been accused of doing something illegal when she was just trying to maintain her property. Tony walked over, looking apologetic. "Sorry about all that. Happens sometimes. People see water running down the street and they panic. Usually they just come ask what's going on. But every once in a while you get someone who goes straight to calling the cops. It's not your fault," Lisa said, though her voice was tight with frustration. She watched Tony head back to work and then she made a decision. She wasn't going to let this go. Her neighbor had publicly accused her, posted photos online, and called the police without even having the courtesy to ask what was happening. That wasn't okay. Lisa walked across her lawn toward her neighbor's driveway. The woman saw her coming and straightened up, that stubborn expression still on her face. Can I help you? The neighbor asked, her tone cold. Actually, yes. I wanted to talk to you about why you called the police on me without even asking what was going on. Her neighbor crossed her arms tighter. I saw water flooding into the street. It looked illegal. I was protecting the neighborhood. It's not flooding. It's controlled drainage into the storm drain, which is exactly what the city permits allow. I have all the paperwork. The police just confirmed I'm doing nothing wrong. Well, I didn't know that, the neighbor said, not sounding particularly apologetic. You should have told everyone you were going to do this. Lisa felt her frustration building. Why would I need to tell everyone? I'm maintaining my own property. I followed all the rules. I got all the permits. What I don't understand is why you didn't just come over and ask me what was happening before you posted about it online and called the police. I don't need to ask permission to call the authorities. When I see something suspicious, it's not about permission. It's about being a reasonable neighbor. It's about having a conversation before you publicly accuse someone and involve the police. The neighbor's expression hardened. Listen, I've lived here for 3 years, and I've seen a lot of people do things that damage this neighborhood. Someone needs to keep an eye on things. If that makes me unpopular, so be it. Other neighbors were definitely watching now. Mrs. Patterson from 2 doors down had stopped pretending to garden and was openly listening. The Johnsons across the street were standing on their porch. This isn't about keeping an eye on things, Lisa said, trying to keep her voice level. This is about you overreacting and trying to create drama where there isn't any. I did everything right. You called the police for no reason. And you posted misleading information on social media that made me look like I was doing something illegal. Misleading? I posted pictures of what was happening. You posted pictures with a caption that accused me of flooding the street and breaking the law. Neither of those things is true. The officer just confirmed that. Her neighbor's face was getting red now. You know what? I'm going to contact the homeowners association. This affects everyone in the neighborhood. You can't just do whatever you want. Lisa almost laughed. Go ahead. Contact them. I have all my permits. I'm following all the HOA rules. There's nothing in our bylaws that says I can't maintain my pool. We'll see about that, the neighbor said and turned to walk back toward her house. I'm not done talking to you, Lisa called after her. The neighbor stopped and turned back. Well, I'm done talking to you. If you have a problem with me protecting this neighborhood, that's your issue, not mine. Protecting the neighborhood? Lisa's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. You called the police on someone who was following all the rules and doing everything legally. That's not protecting anyone. That's harassment. Harassment? The neighbor's voice got louder, too. I'll tell you what harassment is. It's having water running down the street all day long. It's having a police car show up in our nice neighborhood because of you. Because of me. You're the one who called them. Mrs. Patterson chose that moment to walk over. She was an older woman, probably in her 70s, who'd lived on the street since the houses were built. Excuse me, girls. I couldn't help but overhear. Lisa and her neighbor both turned to look at her. Lisa, Mrs. Patterson continued, I just want you to know that most of us understand you're just fixing your pool. We're not concerned about it. We know you're a good neighbor. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson, Lisa said, grateful for the support. Mrs. Patterson turned to the other neighbor. And dear, I think you might have jumped the gun a bit on this one. Maybe next time something concerns you, you could try talking to people first before calling the authorities. The neighbor's face turned even redder. I was just trying to do the right thing. I know you were, Mrs. Patterson said gently. But sometimes the right thing is having a conversation first. We're all neighbors here. We should be able to talk to each other. Mr. Johnson had walked over too. For what it's worth, you called code enforcement on us last year because our trash cans were out 6 hours after collection time. We'd just gotten home from a family emergency at the hospital. A quick conversation would have cleared that up. The neighbor looked around at the small group gathering. So now everyone's ganging up on me? Nobody's ganging up on you, Lisa said. But you need to understand that your actions have consequences. You can't just call the police and make accusations without even trying to find out what's actually happening. That's not okay. I don't have to stand here and listen to this, the neighbor said. You people do whatever you want. Next time something happens, don't expect me to care. She turned and marched toward her house, slamming the door behind her. Lisa stood there, feeling drained. This wasn't how she'd imagined her day going. All she'd wanted to do was fix her pool. Instead, She'd ended up in a confrontation with a neighbor, had the police called on her, and had become the center of neighborhood drama. Mrs. Patterson patted her arm. "Don't worry about her, dear. She means well, but she doesn't quite understand how to be part of a community. Some people just need to learn the hard way." Lisa nodded, thanked her neighbors for their support, and headed back to her house. The pool drainage continued throughout the afternoon, the water level steadily dropping. But Lisa couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that this wasn't over yet. Her neighbor didn't seem like the type to just let things go. Lisa thought things would calm down after the confrontation. She really did. The pool drainage finished that evening without any more incidents. Tony and his crew packed up their equipment, promising to return in 2 days to start the actual repair work. The water was gone, leaving behind an empty shell that showed all the cracks and damage that needed fixing. That night, Lisa tried to relax. She made dinner, helped the kids with their homework, and tried not to think about the awkward encounter with her neighbor. Mike assured her it would blow over. People get worked up, have their moment, and then move on. That's how these things go. But Tuesday morning proved him wrong. Lisa was getting ready for work when her phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged her in the neighborhood Facebook group. Her stomach sank even before she opened the app. Her neighbor had posted again. This time it was a long, detailed complaint about how Lisa had harassed her in her own driveway. The post claimed Lisa had been aggressive and threatening, that she'd yelled at her in front of other neighbors, and that she was creating a hostile environment in the neighborhood. It painted Lisa as some kind of unreasonable bully. Lisa read it twice, her coffee going cold in her hand. This was absurd. She'd been frustrated, sure, but she hadn't threatened anyone. She'd simply asked why her neighbor had called the police without talking to her first. How was that harassment? The worst part was that some people were commenting in support of the neighbor. People who didn't know Lisa, who hadn't been there, who were only hearing one side of the story. They were posting things like, "Some people think they own the neighborhood," and "Thank you for speaking up, we need more people willing to hold others accountable." Lisa wanted to respond. She wanted to set the record straight. But she remembered advice she'd heard once about social media arguments. You never really win them. You just make things worse. Instead, she took screenshots of everything. Every post, every comment, every photo. She saved them all in a folder on her computer. Something told her she might need them later. She headed to work feeling unsettled. Throughout the day, she kept checking her phone. More comments appeared. A few neighbors who'd witnessed the actual conversation defended Lisa, explaining that she hadn't been aggressive at all. But the damage was done. The posts had been seen by hundreds of people in the neighborhood group. When Lisa got home that afternoon, there was a certified letter waiting for her. Her heart sank when she saw the return address. It was from her neighbor. She opened it carefully, reading the typed letter inside. It was a formal complaint claiming that Lisa's pool drainage had caused water damage to her neighbor's driveway and lawn. It demanded compensation for repairs and warned that legal action would follow if Lisa didn't respond within 10 days. Lisa walked around to look at her neighbor's property. The driveway looked exactly the same as it always had. The lawn was fine. There was no water damage whatsoever. This was completely fabricated. She took photos of everything. The driveway, the lawn, the street, the storm drain. Everything looked normal. Then she called Tony. "Hey Tony, quick question. Is there any way the pool drainage could have caused damage to my neighbor's property?" Tony laughed. "No way. The water went straight into the storm drain. That's the whole point of the permit process. It's designed so there's no runoff onto properties. Did someone claim you damaged something?" "Yeah, my neighbor sent me a letter saying I damaged her driveway and lawn." "That's nonsense. I've been doing this for 30 years. Our method doesn't cause property damage. That's why the city approves it. You want me to write a statement about that?" "That would be really helpful, actually." Lisa hung up feeling slightly better. At least she had expert testimony that the damage claim was false. But she was starting to realize this wasn't going away on its own. That evening she got another surprise. An email from the homeowners association. Her neighbor had filed a formal complaint, claiming that Lisa had violated HOA rules by draining her pool without proper notification to surrounding properties and by creating a nuisance. Lisa pulled out her copy of the HOA bylaws and read through them carefully. There was absolutely nothing in there about notifying neighbors before doing pool maintenance. There was nothing saying pool drainage was prohibited or required special permission. The HOA had rules about visible repairs, about noise during certain hours, about where you could store construction equipment, but nothing about what she'd done. She drafted a careful response to the HOA, including copies of all her permits, the police report that showed she'd done nothing wrong, and Tony's business credentials. She explained the situation clearly and factually, without getting emotional or attacking her neighbor. She just laid out the facts. By Thursday, things escalated again. Lisa came home to find a code enforcement officer walking around her property. He explained that someone had filed a complaint about unpermitted work being done on her pool. Lisa, frustrated but prepared, showed him all her permits for the third time that week. The officer apologized for bothering her and left, confirming she'd done everything correctly. But the visits were wearing her down. "This is getting ridiculous," she told Mike that night. "She's called the police, filed complaints with the HOA, sent me a legal threat, and now she's reporting me to code enforcement. All because I drained my pool, which I had every right to do." Mike looked concerned. "Maybe we should talk to a lawyer." "A lawyer? Over a pool repair? Over harassment. That's what this is becoming. She's not going to stop." Lisa hated to admit it, but he was probably right. This had gone way beyond a simple neighbor dispute. This was someone actively trying to cause problems for her, making false claims, and wasting city resources with bogus complaints. Friday afternoon, Lisa met with a lawyer who specialized in property disputes and harassment cases. The lawyer, a woman named Rebecca Park, listened to the whole story while taking notes. "Do you have documentation of all of this?" Rebecca asked. Lisa pulled out her folder. Permits, police reports, photos, screenshots of the Facebook posts, the certified letter, emails from the HOA, statements from Tony and other neighbors. She documented everything. Rebecca flipped through it all, nodding. "You've done well keeping records. This is clearly a pattern of harassment. Your neighbor is making false claims and trying to use official channels to intimidate you. You have a few options here. What do you recommend?" "First, I'd send a cease and desist letter. It's a formal way of telling her that her behavior constitutes harassment, and that if it continues, you'll pursue legal action. Sometimes that's enough to make people back off. They realize they're crossing a line. And if it doesn't work, then we document everything that happens after the letter is sent, and we build a case for a restraining order based on harassment. We could also pursue a defamation claim for the false statements she's made on social media and in her letter about property damage." Lisa felt overwhelmed. This was so much bigger than she'd ever imagined it could get. "All I wanted to do was fix my pool." Rebecca smiled sympathetically. "I know. But sometimes people like your neighbor need clear boundaries. They need to understand that actions have consequences. The letter might be enough." "Let's start there," Lisa agreed. Rebecca said she'd draft the cease and desist letter and have it ready by Monday. It would outline all the harassment, specify that it needed to stop immediately, and warn of legal consequences if it continued. That weekend, Lisa tried to relax, but she felt tense every time she went into her backyard. She could see her neighbor's house from there. She felt like she was being watched. It was uncomfortable in her own home, and she hated that feeling. Monday came, and Tony's crew returned to start the actual repairs. They worked efficiently, replacing the liner, fixing the cracks, and installing the new filtration system. It was going to look amazing when it was done, but Lisa couldn't fully enjoy it. She kept thinking about the cease and desist letter that would be sent out that day. Part of her hoped it would work, that her neighbor would realize she'd gone too far and would back off. Another part of her worried it would just make things worse. The letter was sent certified mail Monday afternoon. Rebecca called to confirm it had been mailed and would likely arrive by Wednesday. Now they just had to wait and see how her neighbor would respond. Lisa spent those days in a strange state of anxiety. Every time she heard a noise outside, she wondered if it was her neighbor doing something else. Every notification on her phone made her think there was another Facebook post or HOA complaint. Wednesday evening, she watched from her window as her neighbor collected her mail. She saw the woman look at the certified mail envelope, sign for it, and take it inside. Lisa's heart was pounding. This was it. Her neighbor would now know that Lisa was serious, that she wasn't going to be pushed around anymore, and that there would be legal consequences if the harassment continued. An hour later, Lisa saw her neighbor storm out of her house and get in her car. She drove off quickly, tires squealing slightly. Lisa wondered where she was going, what she was thinking, whether the letter had made her angry or scared or regretful. Only time would tell if this would finally put an end to the nightmare that started with a simple pool repair. The first night after the cease and desist letter was delivered, Lisa barely slept. She kept imagining worst-case scenarios. What if her neighbor escalated things even more? What if she retaliated somehow? What if this turned into a full-blown legal battle that dragged on for months? But Thursday morning came and went without incident. No angry confrontations, no new Facebook posts, no surprise visits from city officials, just quiet. Lisa went to work, came home, and watched Tony's crew make progress on the pool. They were doing a great job. The new liner was beautiful, the cracks were all repaired, and the filtration system was state-of-the-art. In a few more days, they'd be filling it back up with water. By Friday, Lisa started to feel cautiously optimistic. Maybe the letter had worked. Maybe her neighbor had realized she'd crossed a line and decided to back off. Rebecca had said that often happened. People get caught up in their emotions, do things they shouldn't, but when faced with actual legal consequences, they come to their senses. That weekend, Lisa noticed her neighbor seemed to be avoiding eye contact. A few times they were both outside at the same time, but her neighbor would quickly go back inside. It was awkward, but at least it wasn't hostile. Sunday afternoon, Mrs. Patterson stopped by with some cookies. "I heard you had to send one of those legal letters," she said, settling into a chair on Lisa's porch. "Word travels fast," Lisa said with a small smile. "Oh, honey, in this neighborhood everything travels fast. I just wanted to check on you. This whole situation has been ridiculous. You were just trying to fix your pool." "That's all I wanted to do," Lisa agreed. "I never expected any of this." Mrs. Patterson shook her head. "Your neighbor, she's had issues with a few people on this street. Last year she reported the Hendersons for parking their RV in their driveway for 2 days while they were packing for a trip. Called it an eyesore. Before that she complained about the Williams family's Christmas decorations being up past New Year's Day. Some people just can't help themselves." Lisa hadn't known about those incidents. "So this is a pattern?" "Absolutely. She sees herself as the neighborhood watchdog, but really she's just looking for problems where there aren't any. Most of us have learned to just avoid her. But you stood up to her. Good for you." They talked for a while longer, and Mrs. Patterson shared more stories about neighborhood dynamics. Lisa realized she wasn't alone in dealing with this difficult neighbor. Other people had gone through similar things. It helped knowing she wasn't the only one. Monday morning, Lisa got an email from Rebecca. "I wanted to give you an update. Your neighbor's husband called my office this morning. He said his wife is very upset about the letter and feels like she's being attacked. I explained to him that the letter simply documents what happened and asks that the harassment stop. He seemed reasonable. He said he'd talk to his wife and try to calm things down." Lisa read the email twice. Her neighbor's husband was involved now. She didn't know much about him. He seemed to work long hours and wasn't around much. But maybe his involvement was a good thing. Maybe he could help his wife see reason. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Lisa was working from home when her doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole and was surprised to see her neighbor standing there alone. She looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot. Lisa took a deep breath and opened the door. "Hi," her neighbor said quietly. Her whole demeanor was different from their last interaction. She wasn't angry or defensive. She looked tired and maybe a little embarrassed. "Hi," Lisa replied, staying behind the security screen door. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Lisa hesitated. Part of her wanted to say no, to just close the door, but another part was curious. "Okay," her neighbor took a breath. "I wanted to apologize. My husband and I had a long talk after I got your lawyer's letter. He made me realize I've been handling things badly." Lisa didn't say anything, just waited. "I was wrong to call the police without talking to you first. I was wrong to post those things on Facebook. And I shouldn't have filed all those complaints when you were just doing legal work on your pool." The words came out in a rush, like she'd practiced them. "I get worried about the neighborhood and about property values, and I sometimes overreact. Sometimes." Lisa couldn't help herself. Her neighbor winced. "Okay, more than sometimes. My husband says I need to learn to mind my own business and stop looking for problems. He's probably right." Lisa studied her neighbor's face. She looked genuine. But Lisa also remembered all the stress of the past 2 weeks. The police showing up. The public accusations. The fake damage claims, the constant complaints. I appreciate the apology, Lisa said carefully. But you put me through a lot. You publicly accused me of breaking the law when I'd done everything right. You filed false claims about property damage. You wasted the time of police officers and city officials with bogus complaints. I know. I'm sorry. I really am. And the thing is, you did all of that before you even tried to have a conversation with me. You could have just walked over and asked what was happening. Instead, you went straight to trying to get me in trouble. Her neighbor looked down at her feet. You're right. I should have talked to you first. They stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Lisa didn't know what else to say. An apology was good, but it didn't undo everything that had happened. Anyway, her neighbor continued, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and I won't bother you anymore. I'll stay out of your business from now on. I'd appreciate that, Lisa said. Her neighbor nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, your pool looks really good. The new liner is nice. It was such a random comment that Lisa almost laughed. Thanks. After her neighbor left, Lisa closed the door and leaned against it. What just happened? Was that real? Or was it just an attempt to get Lisa to drop the legal threat? She called Rebecca and told her about the interaction. How did she seem? Rebecca asked. Was it a genuine apology or did it feel performative? I'm honestly not sure. Maybe a bit of both? Well, here's what I'd suggest. Let's see how things go over the next few weeks. If she actually stops the harassment, if there are no more complaints or posts or problems, then we can consider this resolved. But if anything else happens, if she goes back to the same behavior, then we move forward with stronger legal action. That made sense to Lisa. She'd give her neighbor the benefit of the doubt, but she'd also stay alert. The next few days were blessedly quiet. The pool repairs were completed. Tony's crew filled it back up with fresh water, balanced the chemicals, and got everything running perfectly. The pool looked incredible, better than it had in years. Lisa's kids were thrilled. They wanted to jump in immediately, but the weather wasn't quite warm enough yet. Still, they sat by the pool, making plans for all the swimming they'd do once summer arrived. There were no more Facebook posts from her neighbor. No more complaints to the HOA. No more visits from city officials. Just normal, peaceful suburban life. Lisa started to relax again. She could enjoy her backyard without feeling watched. She could check her phone without anxiety. She could come home from work without wondering what fresh drama awaited her. About a week after the apology, Lisa ran into her neighbor at the grocery store. They saw each other across the produce section. For a second, Lisa tensed, ready for awkwardness, but her neighbor just gave a small nod and a half smile, then went back to selecting apples. It was civil, normal, what neighbors should be. Mrs. Patterson stopped by again the following Sunday. I hear things have calmed down, she said. They have. She actually apologized. Did she now? Well, that's something. Her husband must have really read her the riot act. He's a good man. I think he was embarrassed by how she'd been acting. I hope it sticks, Lisa said. I hope she really has learned something from this. Time will tell, Mrs. Patterson said wisely. Some people change, some people just wait until the heat is off before they start up again. But you did the right thing, standing up for yourself. Too many people just let bullies push them around. The pool became the center of family life again as the weather warmed up. The kids had friends over. Mike grilled burgers by the pool. Lisa floated on a raft on Saturday afternoons, finally able to enjoy what she'd worked so hard to repair. One evening in early June, as Lisa was sitting by the pool reading a book, she reflected on everything that had happened. What started as a simple home repair had turned into a neighborhood conflict that required lawyers and legal threats. It was absurd, really, but it had also taught her something important. She'd learned to document everything, to follow all the rules, to stand up for herself when someone tried to push her around. And she'd learned that sometimes you have to draw clear boundaries with people, even if it's uncomfortable. The pool sparkled in the evening light, perfect and clean. It had been worth all the trouble. And hopefully, the drama was finally behind them. Summer arrived in full force, and Lisa's backyard became the neighborhood gathering spot. The kids were in the pool almost every day, their laughter filling the air. Lisa had worked hard to create a welcoming space, and now that the drama with her neighbor seemed to be over, she could actually enjoy it. The relationship with her neighbor settled into what could best be described as politely distant. They'd wave if they saw each other, Maybe exchange a quick good morning, but that was it. No conflicts, but no friendship either. Lisa was fine with that arrangement. Then one Saturday in late June, Lisa decided to do something she'd been thinking about for a while. She wanted to host a neighborhood barbecue by the pool. Part of it was just wanting to share her beautiful backyard with people who'd been supportive. But part of it was also about reclaiming her space and her place in the community. She printed up simple invitations and went door to door on their street. Most neighbors were excited about the idea. The Johnsons said they'd bring drinks. The Hendersons offered to help with setup. Mrs. Patterson promised to make her famous potato salad. When Lisa got to her neighbor's house, she hesitated. Should she invite them? After everything that happened? It felt awkward, but it also felt petty not to invite everyone on the street. Her neighbor's husband answered the door. He was a tall man in his 50s with kind eyes. "Oh, hi Lisa, how's the pool working out?" "It's great, actually. Look, I'm having a neighborhood barbecue next Saturday. Just a casual thing. You and your wife are welcome to come if you'd like." Lisa tried to sound genuine, not forced. He smiled. "That's really nice of you. Especially after everything. I'll talk to my wife about it. Thanks for thinking of us." Lisa walked back home feeling lighter somehow. She'd extended the olive branch. Whether they came or not was up to them. The week leading up to the barbecue, Lisa and Mike prepared everything. They cleaned the pool area, set up tables, tested the grill, and bought way too much food. The kids helped hang string lights around the yard. It was going to be perfect. Saturday morning dawned bright and sunny. Perfect pool weather. By noon, neighbors started arriving. Kids jumped in the pool immediately while adults gathered around with drinks, chatting and laughing. The smell of burgers and hot dogs filled the air. Mrs. Patterson held court by the pool, telling stories about the neighborhood's history. The Johnsons brought their portable speaker and played music. The Henderson kids organized pool games. It was exactly what Lisa had hoped for, a real community gathering. Around 2 o'clock, Lisa was inside getting more ice when Mike came in. "Your neighbor just showed up." Lisa looked out the kitchen window. Sure enough, her neighbor and her husband were standing at the edge of the yard, looking uncertain. Her neighbor was holding a covered dish. Lisa took a breath and went outside. "Hey, glad you could make it." Her neighbor's husband smiled warmly. "Thanks for inviting us. We brought some brownies." "That's really thoughtful, thank you." Lisa took the dish and gestured toward the crowd. "Help yourselves to food and drinks. Pool's open if you want to cool off." They nodded and moved toward the other adults. Lisa watched her neighbor interact with Mrs. Patterson and some other neighbors. It looked a bit stiff, a bit awkward, but at least she'd shown up. An hour later, Lisa was surprised to find her neighbor helping clear some plates and cups. They ended up at the trash bin at the same time. "This is a really nice party," her neighbor said. "And your pool looks amazing. Thanks." It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. There was a pause. Her neighbor looked like she wanted to say something else. Finally, she spoke. "I know I apologized before, but I wanted to say again how sorry I am about how I acted. My husband has been helping me understand that I have a problem with control. I get anxious about things being perfect, about the neighborhood being perfect, and I take it out on other people." Lisa nodded slowly. "I appreciate you saying that. I've actually started seeing a therapist. After the whole thing with the lawyer's letter, my husband insisted, and it's been helpful. I'm learning about why I react the way I do to things." This was more than Lisa expected. "That's good. That's really good that you're working on it. I just wanted you to know it wasn't really about you or your pool. It was about my own issues, and I'm sorry you had to deal with that." They stood there for a moment, and Lisa realized something had shifted. This wasn't just a surface-level apology to avoid legal trouble. Her neighbor was actually trying to change, trying to understand herself better. "I hope the therapy helps," Lisa said genuinely. "Me too. And thank you for inviting us today. You didn't have to do that. We're neighbors. We don't have to be best friends, but we should be able to coexist peacefully." Her neighbor smiled, a real smile this time. "I'd like that." As the afternoon went on, Lisa watched her neighbor interact with others. She was quieter than usual, more reserved, but she seemed to be making an effort. At one point, Lisa saw her laughing at something Mr. Henderson said. It was nice to see. The party wound down as evening approached. Neighbors helped clean up, packing away leftover food and folding up tables. Kids dried off and wrapped themselves in towels, exhausted from hours of swimming. After everyone left, Lisa and Mike sat by the pool in the quiet evening. The string lights glowed softly overhead. "That went well," Mike said. "It really did. Better than I expected. Even your neighbor seemed to have a good time." Lisa nodded. "She told me she's seeing a therapist." "About her control issues," Mike raised his eyebrows. "Wow, that's actually pretty self-aware." "Yeah, I didn't expect that." They sat in comfortable silence listening to the pool filter hum. Lisa thought about everything that had happened over the past couple of months. The stress, the conflict, the legal threats, and now this tentative peace. Over the next few weeks, things continued to improve. Her neighbor seemed to be keeping to herself more, but in a healthy way, not in an angry avoidance way. When they did interact, it was pleasant. Brief, but pleasant. One afternoon in July, Lisa was weeding her front garden when her neighbor came over. "Hey, can I ask you something?" "Sure," Lisa said, standing up and brushing dirt off her hands. "I'm thinking about having some work done on my driveway. It really does need to be resurfaced. But I wanted to let you know ahead of time so you're not surprised by the equipment and noise and everything." Lisa smiled. "I appreciate you telling me. When are they coming?" "Next week, probably Tuesday and Wednesday." "Thanks for the heads up. It was such a simple interaction, but it meant something." Her neighbor was learning. She was making an effort to communicate, to be considerate, to do the things she should have done before all the drama started. In August, Mrs. Patterson organized a block party, something the neighborhood did every few years. Lisa helped with planning, and to her surprise, her neighbor volunteered to help too. They worked together on the organizing committee, planning activities and coordinating food. It was cordial, even friendly at times. The block party was a huge success. Someone rented a bounce house for the kids. There was a cornhole tournament. A local band played music. The whole street was closed off and people set up tables and chairs everywhere. At one point during the party, Lisa found herself standing with her neighbor, watching the kids play. "This neighborhood really is special," her neighbor said. "I've been so focused on keeping it perfect that I forgot to just enjoy it." "It's pretty great," Lisa agreed. "I'm glad we worked things out." "Well, that you forced me to work things out." She gave a self-deprecating laugh. "I needed that wake-up call." "I'm glad too. This is so much better than the alternative." As summer turned to fall, the relationship continued to improve. Not close, not like they were going to be best friends, but respectful and peaceful. They borrowed the occasional cup of sugar. They chatted when they were both getting mail. They waved when they saw each other. One October evening, Lisa was sitting on her porch when she reflected on the whole experience. What had started as a nightmare, with police cars and legal threats, had somehow turned into a lesson about standing up for yourself and setting boundaries. She'd learned that sometimes people need to be confronted about their behavior. That documentation is important, that following the rules matters, that community support is valuable, and that people can change if they're willing to do the work. The pool sat covered for the winter now, but Lisa knew it would be ready when summer came again. And this time there would be no drama, no conflicts, no police cars, just a neighborhood that had learned to communicate better, to respect each other's property rights, and to handle conflicts like adults. Mike came out and sat beside her. "What are you thinking about?" "Just how crazy this year has been. Remember when I just wanted to fix the pool?" He laughed. "Yeah, that escalated quickly, but we got through it. And I think everyone learned something. You certainly taught our neighbor a lesson about not jumping to conclusions." Lisa smiled. "I taught myself some lessons too. About standing up for myself. About not backing down when I know I'm right." They sat together in the cool autumn evening, watching leaves drift across the yard. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful, just the way it should be. A few weeks later, Lisa got a card in the mail. It was from her neighbor. Inside was a simple message. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for setting boundaries I needed. And thank you for showing